A single mother was beaten and cast out with her baby until a millionaire took off his jacket and said, "Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. It was a cold winter night in the heart of the city. The streets were dark, the air sharp with the chill of December. Lila, a single mother, was walking down the sidewalk, her baby in her arms wrapped tightly in a worn-out blanket. Her heart was heavy with the weight of the day, knowing that her world was crumbling. She had just been kicked out of her apartment. No place to go, no one to turn to. With nowhere else to go, she walked the streets, hoping for a miracle, but finding only cold and darkness. As the wind howled around her, she stumbled into a park, hoping to find some shelter from the biting wind. She sat down on a bench, her baby crying softly in her arms. She didn't know how long she had been there, just trying to gather her thoughts, when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up, her heart sinking, as she saw a man walking toward her. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat, his face stern and unreadable. He seemed out of place in the quiet park, but something about him caught her attention. As he got closer, he stopped. Without a word, he removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. The warmth of the fabric wrapped around her like a shield against the cold. She looked up at him, confused but grateful. "I don't have anything to offer you," she said softly, her voice trembling. The man looked down at her, his expression softening just a bit. "You don't need to offer anything," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I just couldn't stand to see someone in need and do nothing." Lila stared up at him, unsure of what to say. Who was this man? Why was he being so kind to her? She had known nothing but hardship for so long. She couldn't believe that someone would help her without asking for something in return. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The man gave her a small nod, then turned to walk away, but before he did, he looked back at her. "Take care of yourself and your child," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of concern. Lila watched him disappear into the night, still in shock over what had just happened. It was a simple gesture, just a coat, but it felt like a lifeline thrown to her in the middle of a storm. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a life-changing turn of events. A millionaire had just shown her kindness, and it would soon lead to a connection that would alter the course of her life forever. I thought about what had happened that night for days after. Lila couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had given her his coat, offering her a kind gesture in the middle of her despair. The warmth of that coat had felt like the first kindness she'd experienced in a long time, and though she wasn't sure who he was, it gave her a small sense of hope. She had been walking the streets with no direction, feeling lost, and then this man had appeared. It was as though the universe had thrown her a lifeline. But what now? What did she do next? It was a cold, hard world outside, and her options were running out. She had no job, no family to turn to, and only the small amount of money she had left to get by. Her baby needed food, diapers, warmth. And as days passed, the weight of it all began to feel too much to bear. She stayed in a shelter for a few nights, but the feeling of insecurity never left her. The constant noise, the lack of privacy, and the overwhelming feeling of not belonging gnawed at her. One night, while she was sitting in the shelter's common room, the memory of that man's face popped back into her mind. She had never seen someone so calm, so unbothered by her situation. Most people had treated her like she was invisible, as though her struggles didn't matter. But he had looked at her like she mattered. That simple gesture of kindness stayed with her, and it made her wonder, who was he? Why had he helped her? Was he really just a kind soul, or was there something more to him? She couldn't stop herself from asking those questions over and over, but no answers came. She returned to the streets the next day, looking for a job, anything to keep them afloat. As the hours stretched on with no luck, she decided to grab a cup of coffee at a small cafe on the corner. It wasn't much, but at least it was warm. She sat by the window, watching people walk by, when she suddenly felt a presence beside her. It was the man, the same man who had given her his coat. He stood in the doorway of the cafe, his tall figure hard to miss, and his gaze locked on hers as if he had been searching for her. Lila's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know whether to feel scared or relieved. "I thought I might find you here," the man said, his voice calm and steady. He was dressed as he had been that night, dark coat, sharp suit, and a presence that made him seem even more out of place in this small cafe. You're the one who gave me your coat," Lila stammered. "Yes, I am," he said, smiling faintly. "I never got your name." She hesitated, unsure of whether she should share anything about herself. But he wasn't like the others who had offered help with expectations. There was something genuine about him, something different. "Lila," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lila, it's a pleasure to meet you properly," he said, extending his hand. She shook it cautiously, still unsure of what he wanted from her. "I know this may sound strange, but I've been thinking about you," he said, sitting down across from her. "You're in a difficult situation, and I'd like to help you. I know it's not much, but I can offer you a place to stay just for a while, until you can get back on your feet. And, if you want, I can help you find work." Lila was taken aback by his offer. It was unexpected, but somehow it felt like a relief. She had never had anyone offer her anything like this. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't even know you." The man leaned back in his chair, his eyes softening. "Sometimes people just need a little kindness, and I believe you've been through more than enough. Let me help, at least for now. You deserve a chance." Lila sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what he was saying. A man who didn't owe her anything, who didn't even know her, was offering her help in a way that no one else had. It felt unreal, but for the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "Okay," she finally said, her voice small but filled with gratitude. "I'll accept your help." The man smiled, and for the first time, his smile reached his eyes. "Good. Let's get you settled in, and we'll take it from there." That was how Lila's new life began. One unexpected gesture of kindness from a stranger who had no reason to help, but chose to anyway. Little did she know, this man wasn't just any stranger. He would soon be more than just a source of help. He would be the one to change everything for her. It had been a week since Lila accepted the stranger's offer. His name was David Carter, a millionaire who owned a successful business, and she was still trying to wrap her mind around the fact that he had helped her without any expectation in return. He had kept his word, offering her a place to stay in one of his properties, a small but comfortable guest apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She had started to settle into the new routine, waking up early, searching for work, and taking care of her baby, Ethan. The weight of her old life was slowly starting to lift, replaced by a feeling she hadn't known in years: hope. But there were still days when the fear would creep in. What if this was all too good to be true? What if David expected something from her later? Despite his kindness, a part of Lila couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was being watched, as if there was a string attached to everything he had done for her. David had been patient, always encouraging her to take things one step at a time. He even helped her set up interviews and gave her advice on how to present herself to potential employers. But she knew there was something about him that wasn't adding up. Why would someone like him, with so much power and wealth, spend so much time helping someone like her, a stranger with nothing to offer? As the days passed, she became more and more curious about him. Every time they talked, he was polite and distant, never revealing much about his life. His world seemed so different from hers. Lila had started to feel like an outsider in his world, but she couldn't help but appreciate his generosity. One afternoon, David invited her to join him for lunch at his company's headquarters. She had hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to enter that kind of world. But he had insisted, saying it would be a good opportunity for her to network and learn. When she arrived, she was in awe of the sleek, modern building. The lobby was grand, with marble floors and tall glass windows that allowed sunlight to pour in. It was so different from the dingy apartments she had lived in before. David greeted her with a warm smile and led her to a private dining room where they were joined by a few of his colleagues. The conversation was mostly business, but David made an effort to include her in the discussions. He asked her about her background, her dreams, and her struggles. Lila tried to answer as honestly as she could, though she couldn't help but feel intimidated by the luxury around her. After the lunch, David gave her a tour of the office. He introduced her to some of the staff, and they all seemed to respect him greatly. Lila couldn't help but feel a little out of place, like she didn't belong there. But David never once made her feel uncomfortable. He was kind, patient, and always encouraged her to keep going. "You're doing great, Lila," he told her, as they walked through the halls. "You've got potential. I see something in you." His words meant a lot to her. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not just as a struggling mother, but as a person with value. But as the days passed, the unease grew. One night, after Lila had put Ethan to bed, she was sitting alone in her apartment when she heard a knock on the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, but when she opened it, she found David standing there. "Can we talk?" he asked, his expression serious. Lila stepped aside to let him in, her heart racing. "What's going on, David?" she asked, sensing that something was different about him tonight. "I've been meaning to tell you something," he began, his voice steady but filled with a hint of nervousness. "I know I've been helping you, but there's something I need to confess. The truth is, I've been watching you, not because I want anything from you, but because I believe in you. I see someone with potential, someone who deserves more than what life has given her so far, and I want to help you get there." Lila looked at him, trying to process his words. "You've been helping me," she said, her voice soft. "But why?" David paused for a moment, his eyes searching hers. "Because I know what it's like to struggle, to feel like the world is against you. I've been there, Lila, and I want to give you the chance to change your life. You've already come so far, but I believe you can do even more." Lila was taken aback by his honesty. She had never expected him to reveal this side of himself. She had always seen him as a man of wealth and power, someone who had everything figured out. But now, she saw him as someone who truly understood the pain of struggle. She didn't know what to say, but she could feel the weight of his words settling in her chest. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I never imagined someone like you would want to help someone like me." David smiled, his expression softening. "I'm not doing this because I expect anything from you, Lila. I'm doing it because I believe you're worth it. I believe you can be so much more than what you think you are." His words struck a chord deep within her. It wasn't just his wealth that made him different, it was his genuine desire to see others succeed. It was then that Lila realized that this was more than just a favor. David wasn't offering her a chance because of his wealth or status. He was offering her a chance because he truly cared. I had been living in David's guest apartment for nearly 2 weeks, and although I was grateful for everything he had done for me, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully believe it. How could someone so wealthy, so powerful, care so much about me, a stranger? I had known hardship my entire life, and it felt almost unreal to be treated like this. As much as David had been kind, patient, and supportive, I couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in the back of my mind. Was this too good to be true? Despite all the help, I still felt like an outsider, someone who didn't truly belong in his world. But I tried not to dwell on those thoughts. I had a baby to care for, a life to rebuild. I couldn't afford to get distracted by my insecurities. The mornings were busy as I prepared for interviews and took care of Ethan. But in the afternoons, I would sometimes sit on the small balcony of the apartment and let my mind wander. It was on one of these afternoons that David knocked on my door. I had been sitting with a cup of coffee when I heard the familiar tap on the door. "Come in," I called, looking up to see David standing in the doorway. His usual calm demeanor seemed a little different today, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said softly. I set my coffee down and stood up, my heart racing. "What's wrong?" I asked, suddenly feeling nervous. "Nothing's wrong," he replied, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. "But I think it's time you knew the full truth." I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "The truth is, I didn't just help you because I saw you struggling," he began, his voice steady but with an edge of vulnerability. "I helped you because I've been where you are. I've struggled, Lila. I've been at rock bottom before." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. David, the man who had everything, money, power, success, had been through hardship? It was hard to imagine. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I grew up in a broken family, David continued, looking down at the floor. My father was absent, and my mother did the best she could to raise me, but we were never rich. I had to fight for everything I have now. It wasn't easy. I know what it's like to feel like the world is against you, and I know what it's like to have nothing. I saw that same struggle in you. That's why I helped. I felt a wave of emotion rise in my chest. For the first time, I understood why David had done what he had. It wasn't just charity, it was empathy. I never expected anything in return, David added, his eyes meeting mine. But I see something in you, Lila. I believe in you. You're stronger than you realize, and I want to help you find that strength. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. I don't know what to say, I whispered. You've already done so much for me. I don't deserve all of this. David shook his head. You deserve it, he said, stepping closer. You've been through so much, and yet you're still standing. You're a fighter, Lila. His words hit me like a wave, crashing over me and pulling me into a sea of emotions. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen. Thank you, I whispered. You've given me a chance to believe in myself again. David smiled, his expression softening. That's all I want for you, he said gently. For you to believe in yourself, because I know you can do great things. I nodded, feeling a sense of determination rise inside me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but with David's help, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could build the life I had always dreamed of. The next few days were a blur of interviews and paperwork. David continued to offer his support, but I knew it was time for me to take control of my life. I couldn't rely on him forever. I had to find my own path. And so, I set out to prove to myself that I could stand on my own 2 feet. But as the days passed, I began to realize that David wasn't just offering help as a mentor. He had become someone important in my life, someone I could trust, someone I could lean on. It was strange, feeling this way, but it was undeniable. There was a connection between us, something that went beyond his help and my gratitude. But I wasn't sure if he felt the same. He had been clear about his intentions, he just wanted to help me. But as the days passed, I found myself wondering if there could be more to it. Could he ever see me as more than just someone to help? Or was I just another person he felt the need to save? I had been working hard every day, pushing myself to find a steady job and build a future for myself and Ethan. It wasn't easy, but with David's continued support, I started to believe that maybe I could make it. It had been weeks since David had opened up to me, and each day I felt more connected to him, not just as the man who had helped me, but as someone who had become an integral part of my life. He was kind, patient, and always made sure I knew he believed in me. But the uncertainty still lingered. I kept wondering whether there was something more between us. Every time we spent time together, whether it was working on job applications, having dinner, or simply talking, I felt a connection that went beyond gratitude. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to ask him how he truly felt. I was afraid. Afraid that if I asked, I might ruin the friendship or whatever it was that had started to develop between us. But then, one evening, everything changed. It was a quiet Friday night when David invited me to join him for dinner at a restaurant. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was his way of showing me that he appreciated my progress. I had found a part-time job at a local cafe, and it had been a huge step forward for me. When I arrived at the restaurant, David was already there, sitting at a corner booth. He smiled when he saw me, his eyes warm, and I could feel my heart skip a beat. He stood up as I walked over to the table. "I'm so proud of you, Lila," he said, his voice sincere. "You've really taken control of your life, and I know this is just the beginning for you." I smiled, a little embarrassed by his praise, but I appreciated it more than he knew. We sat down, and as we started eating, the conversation flowed easily. It was just the two of us, talking about everything and nothing. But then, something shifted in the air. I could feel the tension building between us, like there was something unsaid, something we were both avoiding. And then, without warning, David spoke. "Lila, I've been meaning to tell you something," he said, his voice low but clear. I looked up at him, my stomach tightening. "What is it?" I asked, suddenly feeling nervous. He paused, his eyes studying mine, as if he were gathering the right words. "I think you know by now that I care about you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I don't just care about you because of the help I've given you. I care about you because I've started to feel something more. My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had suspected it, but hearing him say it out loud was something else entirely. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. David reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "I've been trying to figure out what I was feeling, but it's become clear to me now. I care about you, Lila. I think I've fallen for you." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and unexpected. I stared at him, unsure of how to respond. My heart was racing, and I felt a rush of emotions I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. "David, I started, but I couldn't find the words." "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "I just wanted to be honest with you. I don't want to hide how I feel anymore. I know this isn't simple, and I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. This was everything I had been afraid of, and yet, at the same time, it was everything I had secretly hoped for. But could I really allow myself to feel this way? Could I let myself fall for him when I wasn't even sure if I could ever be the woman he deserved? "David, I began again, but this time I wasn't interrupted. "You don't have to decide anything right now," he said softly. "I just wanted to let you know how I feel. Take your time, and know that no matter what, I'm here for you. Whether as a friend, a mentor, or maybe more, I'll support whatever you need." I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. He wasn't pressuring me. He wasn't expecting anything from me. He just wanted to be honest and let me know that I mattered to him in a way that went beyond just helping me get back on my feet. I wasn't sure what the future would hold, but in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone anymore. I sat there in silence for a long moment, my hand still in David's, my mind racing. His words echoed in my head. He had fallen for me. I could hardly believe it, even though a part of me had suspected it. But hearing him say it out loud made everything seem so real, so overwhelming. I had never imagined that someone like him, someone so successful, so confident, would feel this way about me. Someone who had been living in poverty, someone who had nothing to offer but a child and a desire for a better life. As I looked into David's eyes, I felt a mixture of fear and hope. I was terrified of what might happen if I let myself fall for him. Could I really open my heart again after everything I had been through? But at the same time, there was a part of me that wanted to believe in him, in us. He had given me so much already: his kindness, his support, his belief in me. It was hard to ignore the pull I felt toward him, the way he made me feel seen and valued in a way no one else ever had. But could I trust him? Could I trust myself? I took a deep breath and gently pulled my hand away from his, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "David," I finally said, my voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what to say. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I've been through so much, and I'm scared of getting hurt again. I don't know if I can let myself feel this way." David nodded, his expression soft but understanding. "I get it, Lila," he said quietly. "I know you've been through a lot, and I would never push you into anything you're not ready for. I just wanted you to know how I feel. You don't have to say anything right now. Take your time." His words comforted me more than I expected. He wasn't demanding anything from me. He just wanted to be honest with me, and that meant a lot. Still, I couldn't shake the fear that had settled in my chest. It had been so long since I had allowed myself to hope for something good, to believe that I deserved something more. I had spent years focusing on survival, on providing for Ethan, on keeping my head above water. I didn't know if I was ready to open myself up to the possibility of something more. As we finished our dinner, I couldn't stop thinking about what David had said. It wasn't just his words that had struck me, but the way he had looked at me, the way he made me feel like I was worth something. For so long, I had felt invisible, as though the world had forgotten about me. But David saw me. He saw me for who I was, not just as a struggling single mother, but as someone with potential, and that scared me. It was easier to stay hidden, to keep my walls up, than to risk letting someone in again. But as I left the restaurant that night, I couldn't help but wonder, what if I took the risk? What if I let myself believe that I deserved something more than what I had known? What if David was the one to show me that there was more to life than just surviving? I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened. David had given me the space I needed, not pushing me to make any decisions, but simply being there when I needed him. It was clear that he truly cared for me, but I still didn't know if I was ready to take that next step. The idea of opening my heart to someone felt terrifying, but at the same time, it was a thought that lingered in my mind. I couldn't deny the connection between us, the way he made me feel. So, I decided to talk to him. I needed to understand what he was feeling, what he wanted from me. One afternoon, I found him in his office, working on some papers. He looked up when I entered, his face lighting up with a smile. "Hey, Lila," he said warmly, motioning for me to sit down. "How's everything going?" I sat down across from him, my hands nervously twisting in my lap. "David, I've been thinking a lot about what you said," I began, my voice a little shaky. "And I don't know what I'm feeling. I want to believe in you, in us, but I'm scared. I've been through so much, and I don't know if I can trust myself, let alone anyone else." David's expression softened as he listened. "Lila, I understand," he said gently. "And I'm not asking you to make any decisions right away. I just want you to know that I'm here, for whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere. Take your time." His words eased some of the tension in my chest. For the first time, in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. David wasn't just offering help or support, he was offering something more. He was offering me a chance to believe in love again, to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have a future that wasn't filled with fear and uncertainty. And as I looked at him, I realized that I didn't have to have all the answers right now. I didn't have to be ready to take the next step immediately. What mattered was that I was willing to try. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope for the future. I had been wrestling with my feelings for days, trying to make sense of everything that had happened between David and me. There was a part of me that wanted to give in to what I felt for him, to believe in the possibility of something real, but there was also a fear that kept holding me back. I wasn't sure if I was ready to trust again, to let someone in the way David wanted me to, but I had to face the truth. I cared about him too. I could no longer deny the connection between us. David had been there for me in ways no one else had. He had supported me without asking for anything in return, and he had always respected my boundaries. But what scared me most was the idea of being vulnerable again, of opening myself up to someone who could potentially hurt me. I had been hurt too many times before. That afternoon, after we had talked in his office, I decided I needed to clear my head. I took a long walk through the park, pushing the stroller with Ethan, peacefully sleeping in it. The fresh air helped, but my mind was still swirling with thoughts about David. Could I really do this? Could I allow myself to be happy, to trust him, and to build something more than just a friendship? I stopped by a bench near the lake, sitting down and letting the cool breeze wash over me. Ethan stirred in the stroller, and I gently rocked it back and forth, trying to calm my thoughts. As I sat there, I realized that I couldn't keep running from my feelings. I had spent so long building walls around myself, trying to protect my heart from getting broken again. But maybe it was time to take a chance. Maybe it was time to let David in, to let myself believe that I could have a future where I wasn't just surviving, but truly living. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to try. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of determination. I couldn't keep second-guessing myself. I had to be honest with David, with myself. As I prepared breakfast for Ethan, I thought about what I wanted to say to him. I had to tell him how I felt, no matter how scared I was. Later that day, when David came by to check on me, I knew it was the right moment. He walked into the apartment with his usual warm smile, but there was something different about him today. He seemed a little more relaxed, a little more at ease. I stood up from the couch, taking a deep breath as I faced him. "David, I've been thinking about what you said," I began, my voice steady but my heart racing. "And I think I've finally figured out what I want." David looked at me, his expression softening. "You don't have to say anything if you're not ready," he said gently. But I could tell he was holding his breath, waiting for me to speak. I shook my head. "No, I'm ready," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I've been holding back because I'm scared. I've been hurt before, and I didn't want to get hurt again. But I've realized that I don't want to keep living in fear. I want to take a chance, David. I want to try this with you." David's eyes widened in surprise, and I could see the relief in his face as I spoke. "You do?" he asked, his voice quiet. "You want to try with me?" I nodded, my heart thumping in my chest. "Yes, I care about you, David. I've been so afraid of this, but I know now that I don't want to be afraid anymore." He stepped closer to me, his hands reaching out to gently hold mine. "Lila, you don't have to be afraid," he said, his voice filled with warmth and reassurance. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I could finally breathe. The weight that had been pressing down on my chest began to lift. I had been so consumed with fear and uncertainty that I had forgotten to trust in myself, in what I wanted. But now, standing here with David, I knew that taking this chance was the right thing to do. I wasn't alone anymore. We were in this together, and I wasn't going to let my past hold me back any longer. David smiled, his eyes filled with warmth and affection. "I'm so glad you're ready to take this step with me," he said softly. "I'll be here for you, always." I felt a rush of emotions as I looked into his eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a future one that wasn't defined by fear or uncertainty. It was defined by the hope of something new, something real. And as I stood there, holding David's hand, I knew that this was only the beginning of our journey together. I had spent the last few weeks trying to adapt to my new life with David, learning to trust in the possibility of something more between us. The changes were subtle at first, but they were real. David was supportive and patient, encouraging me every step of the way. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, but actually living. Ethan was thriving too, and I could see him becoming a happy, healthy little boy. The past few months had been nothing short of a whirlwind, but as I tried to adjust, something unexpected happened. A new challenge arose that I wasn't prepared for. David had been away for a business trip, and I was taking care of everything on my own, trying to balance work, taking care of Ethan, and keeping the apartment in order. It wasn't easy, but I was managing. Then one evening, as I was putting Ethan to bed, I received a call that would change everything. It was from a woman named Claire. "Hello, is this Lila?" she asked, her voice cool and professional. "Yes, this is Lila. Who is this?" I replied, confused by the call. "This is Claire. I work with David," she said. "I'm calling to inform you that there are some issues with David's company that need immediate attention, and we need you to come to the office as soon as possible." My stomach sank. "What kind of issues?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "It's a bit complicated," Claire replied, "but we need you to come in. It's urgent." I had no idea what was going on, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed my coat, bundled up Ethan, and made my way to the office. When I arrived, Claire was waiting for me in the lobby. She led me into one of the conference rooms, where a group of serious-looking individuals were gathered around a table. David wasn't there. But Claire reassured me that he would be joining us soon. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart racing. "We're facing some legal troubles," Claire explained. "There have been some accusations against David's company, and it's created a lot of tension. It's affecting everything, his business, his reputation, and even his personal life." I sat there, shocked. "What kind of accusations?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Claire hesitated before speaking. "There are claims of financial misconduct, embezzlement, and improper dealings with investors," she said quietly. "These claims are serious, Lila. They could change everything for David." My mind was spinning. How could this happen? David had always seemed so solid, so trustworthy. I had never once suspected that something like this could be going on behind the scenes. The thought of David being involved in something illegal seemed impossible. Just then, David walked into the room, his face strained, his usual calm demeanor gone. He looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. "Lila," he began, his voice rough. "I'm sorry you had to hear about this way." "David, what's going on?" I asked, standing up, the weight of the situation hitting me. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said, running a hand through his hair. "There have been some things going on in the company that I didn't realize were happening. I'm being blamed for things I didn't do, but I'm responsible for what's happening." His words were heavy, but they didn't make sense. "How could this happen?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I knew you. I thought everything was fine. David looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. I should have seen the signs earlier, Lila, he said quietly. I've been so focused on the business, on making everything work, that I didn't notice the things going wrong behind the scenes. Now, everything's falling apart, and I don't know what to do. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. I didn't know what to say. I had always known that life wasn't perfect, but I never imagined it would come crashing down like this. David, you've done so much for me, I said, my voice shaking. You've given me a chance when I had nothing. I don't know what's happening, but I believe in you. David finally met my gaze, his eyes filled with gratitude and pain. I don't deserve your belief in me, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But I'm going to fix this. I don't know how yet, but I won't stop until I make it right. I reached out and took his hand, squeezing it tightly. We'll figure this out, I said, my voice steady now. We're in this together. For the first time, I felt like I had a sense of direction, even in the face of this overwhelming uncertainty. David wasn't alone in this fight, he had me, and I wasn't going anywhere. The road ahead was uncertain, but we would face it together, no matter what happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The weight of the accusations against David was too much to absorb in one sitting. Financial misconduct, embezzlement, and improper dealings, everything he had worked for was now under threat. I had trusted him, believed in him, and now I was left with more questions than answers. David, who had helped me so much and always treated me with kindness, was now facing accusations that could destroy his life and the company he had built. How could this be happening? I looked at him, trying to find the man I knew beneath the worry and the pain in his eyes. He was doing his best to hold it together, but I could see the cracks. David, we need to figure this out, I said, my voice steady but filled with uncertainty. He nodded, his gaze focused on the floor. I know, he replied quietly. I don't know where things went wrong. Everything was fine, and then, out of nowhere, these allegations came up. But I will not let them define me. I will prove my innocence, no matter what it takes. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the fear was still there, fear of losing him, fear of what this meant for both of us, for our future. What can we do? I asked, hoping for some kind of direction. David stood up, pacing the room, his hands running through his hair in frustration. I need to gather evidence, talk to my lawyers, and find out who's behind all of this. I don't know if it's someone trying to bring me down or if it's a misunderstanding, but I need to get to the bottom of it. We'll do it together, I said, standing up to face him. You're not alone in this. I believe in you, and I know we can get through this. He looked at me, his eyes softening. Thank you, Lila, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have no idea how much that means to me. I've been so focused on fixing this, I didn't stop to think about how much you've been affected by all of this. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, I said quickly, reaching out to take his hand. We're in this together. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, meetings with lawyers, and constant uncertainty. Every time I looked at David, I saw the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was determined to clear his name, but I could see the toll it was taking on him. He wasn't the same man I had met months ago, the confident, calm man who had offered me a chance at a new life. Now, he was consumed with worry and doubt. It broke my heart to see him like this. Ethan was still unaware of the chaos around us. As a child, he only noticed the small changes, the long hours his father was spending in meetings, the hushed conversations that had replaced our usual laughter. But for the most part, he was happy, playing with his toys, enjoying the simple things. I couldn't let the weight of this crisis fall on him too. But it was hard to keep the facade of normalcy when everything around us was shifting. One evening, as I sat in the living room, watching Ethan play, I couldn't help but think about how much had changed in such a short period. From the moment I met David, everything had been a whirlwind. He had taken me in when I had nowhere else to go, offered me a job, and slowly I began to trust in the possibility of a better life. Now, everything was at risk. The future we were building, the dreams I had started to let myself believe in, were all hanging by a thread. I had to remind myself that I wasn't just fighting for David's future, I was fighting for my own. for Ethan's. We all had a right to a better life. I couldn't let fear take that away from us. The following week, David's team of lawyers uncovered some startling information. The accusations were indeed part of a larger scheme to bring down David's company. They had traced some of the financial mismanagement to an internal employee who had been embezzling funds and framing David for the crimes. It wasn't a simple misunderstanding, but a targeted attack. The news was both a relief and a shock. It meant that David wasn't responsible for the wrongdoing, but it also meant that someone close to him had betrayed him in the worst way possible. David was furious, but there was a sense of relief, too. He wasn't guilty, and he now had the evidence to prove it. With the lawyers working on clearing his name, we could finally breathe again. But the scars of the situation were still fresh. The person who had set all of this in motion was still out there, and David's company, his reputation, were not yet fully safe. I could see how much this had affected him, but I also saw something else: determination. David was going to fight for his company, for everything he had worked for, and for his future. And I would be right beside him, supporting him every step of the way. We had come so far together already, and no matter how dark the road ahead seemed, I knew that we would face it together. With the truth on our side, there was hope for a new beginning. I couldn't believe how much had changed in just a few weeks. After David had discovered that his company was the target of an inside job, things had started moving quickly. With the lawyers working tirelessly to expose the truth, David's name was slowly being cleared. The internal employee who had framed him was under investigation, and the evidence was stacking up in their favor. Despite the relief, I could see that David was still shaken. He hadn't been able to shake off the betrayal, the feeling that someone close to him had taken advantage of his trust. He was spending long hours at the office, working with his team to rebuild the company's reputation. I could tell how much this all meant to him, but there was something more. He was determined to make sure that nothing like this would ever happen again. But it wasn't just business that was consuming his thoughts. David was still carrying the weight of the situation in his personal life. Every time I looked at him, I saw the tension in his eyes, the deep lines of worry etched into his face. Even though we had come so far together, I could feel the distance growing between us. I knew he was trying to protect me from the stress, but the truth was, I wanted to be there for him. We had been through so much, and I didn't want him to face this alone. One evening, after another exhausting day, I decided to surprise him. I wanted to remind him that, despite everything, we were in this together. I had spent the day preparing a simple dinner for the two of us, nothing fancy, just a meal that I hoped would bring us some comfort amidst the chaos. When he walked through the door, I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, but there was something different about the way he looked at me. "I've got something for you," I said as I set the table. "I know things have been crazy, but I wanted us to have a quiet evening together." David smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "I really needed this, Lila," he said, his voice softening as he took a seat at the table. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the weight of the world still hanging over us, but for once, it felt like we were able to breathe. "I've been thinking," I said quietly, breaking the silence. "I know you've been so focused on the company, and I get it. It's important to you. But you've been carrying all this weight on your shoulders, and I can see it. I want to help. I want to be part of this too. You don't have to do this alone." David looked at me, his expression softening. "I don't want to drag you into this mess, Lila," he said, his voice filled with concern. "You've already been through so much. I don't want to add to your burden." I reached out, placing my hand on his. "David, we've been through a lot together already. I'm not going anywhere. I want to be here for you, for us. We're in this together. That's what partners do." He looked at me for a long moment, as if considering my words. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been so focused on fixing everything that I didn't stop to think about how much you've been affected. I've been selfish, in a way. But I want you to be a part of this. I need you, Lila." The sincerity in his voice made my heart ache. I had always believed that we were in this together, but hearing him say it, hearing him admit how much he needed me, made everything feel real. We spent the rest of the evening talking, opening up about our fears and our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy, and we didn't have all the answers. But in that moment, I knew that we were stronger together. The next few days were filled with progress. David's team had managed to expose the truth, and the evidence was undeniable. The employee who had been embezzling funds was arrested, and the company's reputation began to rebuild. Slowly but surely, David's world was coming back together. But even as things started to improve on the business side, I could see that he was still haunted by the betrayal. It wasn't just about clearing his name, it was about the trust that had been broken, the people he had relied on who had let him down. I knew that this wasn't something he could fix overnight, but I was determined to stand by him, no matter how long it took. It wasn't just about the business or the legal battle, it was about us. It was about building something real, something lasting, together. And I was ready to face whatever came next. Together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief as the days passed, and the truth about David's company began to unfold. The legal team had successfully cleared his name, and the accusations that had threatened to tear everything apart were slowly fading away. But despite all the progress, I could still sense the heavy weight on David's shoulders. Even though the company was recovering, the emotional toll the betrayal had taken on him was undeniable. He had been so focused on fixing the mess, trying to make things right, that he hadn't fully dealt with the hurt of it all. I knew he was doing his best to move forward, but it was clear that the scar of the betrayal was going to take time to heal. As for me, I was trying my best to be there for him, to offer him support when he needed it, but I was also struggling with my own emotions. I had spent so long trying to survive, trying to make a better life for myself and Ethan, that I had never truly allowed myself to think about what I wanted. Now that things were starting to settle, I realized I had to face my own fears. Could I truly open myself up to this new life with David? Was I ready to believe in the possibility of a future with him? The thought terrified me, but I knew I couldn't keep running from it. David had shown me kindness, had been there when I needed him most, and had never once expected anything in return. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that meant more than anything. It was time for me to believe in us. One evening, after a long day, I found myself sitting on the couch, thinking about everything that had happened. Ethan was already asleep in his room, and the apartment was quiet, a welcome contrast to the chaos of the past few months. David had just returned from another long day at the office, and as he walked into the living room, I could see the exhaustion on his face. But there was something else there, hope. For the first time in a while, he seemed like he was ready to move forward, ready to embrace what was next. I stood up from the couch, walking over to him. "David," I said softly, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking, and I think I'm ready. I'm ready to face the future with you. I want to build something real with you, something lasting. I want to be by your side, no matter what." David looked at me, his expression softening, as he took a step toward me. "Lila," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been waiting for you to say that. I've wanted this, but I didn't want to pressure you. I know you've been through so much, and I've been trying to fix everything, but I never wanted you to feel like you had to carry the weight of it all with me. But now, I know that we're in this together." My heart swelled as I looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. We weren't perfect, and we had both been through our share of struggles, but we had made it this far, and together, we could face anything. "We are in this together," I said, my voice firm with conviction. "We've been through so much, and we've come out stronger for it. I believe in you, David. I believe in us." David smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Lila," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you." I reached out, taking his hand in mine. "You don't have to do it alone. We're a team, remember?" We stood there for a moment, just holding each other, letting the weight of everything that had happened settle between us. It had been a long road, but it felt like we were finally on the other side of it. The truth had come to light, and the future was once again within our grasp. We didn't know what the next chapter would bring, but we knew one thing for sure: we would face it together, as a family. And that was all that mattered. I sat beside David in the quiet of the evening, the soft hum of the city below filtering through the windows. The last few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, challenges, and moments of hope. We had faced everything together, from the betrayal that nearly tore us apart, to the long hours of work and legal battles. And now, finally, after all the turmoil, we were here. David had cleared his name, the company was on the road to recovery, and most importantly, we were still together. As we sat in the dimly lit living room, Ethan was sound asleep in his room, and I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. I looked over at David, who was sitting beside me, his hand gently resting on the arm of the couch. He had been through so much, and I could still see the weight of the past few months on his face. But there was also something different in his eyes, peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing that the hardest battles had been fought and won, and that the future, although still uncertain, held endless possibilities. I reached for his hand, my fingers intertwining with his. David, I know things haven't been easy. I know this past year has been filled with unexpected twists and turns. But we made it, I said, my voice soft, but filled with a confidence I hadn't had before. He turned to me, his eyes filled with gratitude. We made it, he repeated, squeezing my hand. And I couldn't have done it without you, Lila. You've been my strength when I felt weak, and my reminder that everything I've worked for is worth fighting for. I smiled, my heart swelling at his words. You've been there for me too. You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You showed me that I could believe in myself again. We sat in silence for a moment, just taking it all in the calm, the quiet, the sense of knowing that we had both found something we never thought possible. We had built a life together, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. I know we've been through a lot, David said after a long pause, breaking the silence between us. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to let anything come between us again. I looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. I had heard those words from him before, but now, after everything we had been through, they meant more than they ever had. I believe you, I said softly. And I'm not going anywhere either. The words felt like a promise, a commitment to something deeper than either of us had ever expected. We had faced the storm, and now we were ready to rebuild. So, what's next for us? I asked, my voice filled with a sense of curiosity and excitement. David smiled, a small, knowing smile. Next, we build the life we've always dreamed of, together. I felt a warmth spread through me as I heard him speak those words. For the first time, I could truly see a future one, where we weren't just surviving, but thriving. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, and there would be obstacles. But we had each other, and that made all the difference. We didn't need to have everything figured out right now. We didn't need a plan for every step. What mattered was that we were committed to this life, to this future, and to each other. As I looked at David, I realized that he had become more than just a man who had helped me. He was my partner, my equal, and my love. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at home. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other, and that was enough. With David by my side, I knew we could face anything. And so, as the evening stretched on and the city lights twinkled outside, I knew that this was just the beginning. Our journey together was only starting, and it was a journey I couldn't wait to take. Together, I looked at David, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe without the weight of uncertainty on my chest. The journey we had been on together had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought us closer than I ever thought possible. The road ahead was still unknown, but now we faced it hand in hand, with a commitment to each other that could not be broken. As time passed, the company continued to thrive, the legal battles slowly fading into the background and the weight of betrayal lifting. David's reputation was restored, but it wasn't just the business that had been rebuilt. It was our lives. David and I spent more time together, learning to navigate the ups and downs of building a life from the ground up. The uncertainty that once clouded our future had given way to a sense of possibility. I had learned to trust again, not only in David but in myself. We had both changed, and the changes were not just from the outside, but deep within. We were no longer two people who were simply surviving. We were building a future together. With each passing day, it became more clear that this was the life we were meant to live. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The bond we had was stronger than anything I had ever imagined, and it only grew deeper as time went on. We learned to cherish the little moments, family dinners, quiet evenings at home, and even the tough days when everything seemed overwhelming. Through it all, we knew that we were in this together. It wasn't just about surviving the challenges, it was about embracing them and growing stronger as a couple. I could see the man I had fallen in love with, the one who had shown me kindness when I needed it most. the one who had believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself, growing more confident every day. And in turn, I had found a new version of myself, someone who could take risks, who could love deeply and without reservation. We were building a life that was filled with hope, not fear. And in this new chapter, I saw endless possibilities. I watched Ethan grow, and with each milestone, I was reminded of how far we had come. From the uncertainty of our beginnings to the strength we now had, every moment was a testament to what we had built together. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, David looked at me, a smile playing on his lips. "I never thought I'd get here," he said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I have you, Lila. You've made me a better person." I smiled back, my heart swelling with love. "We've made each other better," I replied, my voice steady and sure. "And we're only just getting started." As the days passed, I realized that this was it, the life I had always dreamed of, the future I had fought for. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was all that mattered. Together, we had faced the impossible, and together, we had built something beautiful. And as I looked at David, at the life we had created, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it as a family, hand in hand, with hearts full of love and hope. Discover the powerful journey of a single mother and a millionaire in this heartfelt story of love, trust, and transformation. This tale of hardship and redemption brings to light the true essence of what it means to trust again, to build something real, and to fight for a future against all odds. From the moment the two characters meet, their lives intertwine in ways neither could have predicted, setting the stage for an inspiring journey of personal growth, overcoming betrayal, and rediscovering the meaning of family. This narrative of overcoming challenges, filled with raw emotions and intense moments, is a true testament to the power of second chances and the importance of believing in love. The story shows how sometimes, even in the face of adversity, love and support can bring two people together to create a life they never thought possible. As the millionaire's life starts to unravel due to false accusations, he must navigate the turbulent waters of business and personal relationships, all while proving his innocence and rebuilding what he has lost. Through it all, the bond between him and the woman he cares for grows stronger, making it one of the most unforgettable millionaire stories of hope and resilience. In the end, they both realize that love is the strongest force in their lives as they rebuild together, proving that no matter how dark things seem, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. This millionaire story is one of perseverance, trust, and the undeniable truth that love conquers all, showing that through teamwork, anything is possible. With each obstacle they face, the couple's love grows, and they build a future that is filled with promise and hope, showing us all the true meaning of never giving up. This is not just another one of those typical millionaire stories. It is a powerful reminder that love and determination can change lives, making it a story you will not want to miss.